powers must act together because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu.
Somewhere Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems.
चुन चुन करके हिसाब लेना ये मेरी फितरत है.
Why should it be a problem if I'm smart enough to have multiple options? You should be admiring me.
भारत झुकने वाला भी नहीं.
The rise of India will be determined by India. It will be determined by our strength, not by the mistakes of others.
The old order is not coming back. We shouldn't mourn it. Nostalgia is not a strategy.
Yes, welcome back to my channel. Just few days ago, actually, Prime Minister Modi in a speech, he sort of kind of warned citizens of India that they should be prepared for the looming crisis, a COVID-19 type crisis. Okay. So the question really is, what is going on? See, right now, if you look at around the globe, something unusual is happening across the world, all over at the same time, right? Very unusual. Russia-Ukraine war, it keeps on going. President Trump said that he can stop that war. I mean, he's been saying it's about 2-3 years, but nothing happened. Then President Putin, all of a sudden, he's saying that, yeah, it's coming to an end. It's going to be, it will end very soon. President Trump, for past 500 days, year and a half of his presidency, all he did is he criticized China. China is crap. This, China is this, China is that. Just for what? To visit China with the whole entire crew. Then look at Prime Minister Modi. He's traveling to UAE and Europe. Then India is organizing the foreign ministers meet. What's interesting about this is that BRICS has Iran, UAE, Saudi Arabia. They are all part of BRICS. And UAE and Saudi Arabia are fighting Iran. They just bombed 2 days ago. They just bombed Iran. So if you look into all these things that are happening, okay, so at first glance, these look like unrelated diplomatic events. But what if they're not? Because in my experience, based on what the reading and research I do, history shows that the major powers, when the major powers suddenly become hyperactive at the same time, it usually means one thing and one thing only. That is, there is some looming crisis ahead. Something is coming, okay? And right now, if you look into it, then you find that energy systems, trade routes, then financial systems, then geopolitical alliances, they're all under pressure simultaneously, right? So the real question is, or a real question may not be whether another global crisis is coming. The question may be, how are India and BRICS preparing for it, right? That's the apt question, if you ask me. And that's exactly what we are going to talk about in this video. This is going to be a very important video, so stay with me till the end. This is going to be a very interesting video, so stay with me till the end. Please do like and subscribe if you enjoy geopolitical system analysis like this. And also go check out my book, called Emerging World Order 2025. It's on Amazon Kindle, and you can find it on Amazon as paperback as well. So please do go check it out, and let's get going. Let's get started with the video. See, the first thing that BRICS is doing is that BRICS is negotiating with the Western world, and vice versa. It's not just that BRICS is negotiating, it's actually the West is also negotiating with the BRICS countries at the same time. Now, if you look into it closely, then you find that since the day one of President Trump's presidency, he's been talking about ending BRICS. Sometimes he also made the statements like BRICS is dead and all that, right? And now things are changing. All those attempts were made, lots of things were done. Okay. Lots and lots of ways BRICS countries were targeted. Sometimes China was targeted, sometimes Russia was targeted, sometimes India was targeted. Then finally, it all came down to Iran. So, but when all that failed, so now he's making trips to China. And on one side, he's visiting China, and on the other side, BRICS foreign ministers are meeting in India, New Delhi. And officially, if you look into it, then you find that BRICS foreign ministers meeting or BRICS, any BRICS minister, they talk about what latest international developments, politics, security, finance, future direction of cooperation. They use all these fancy words. And at first glance, it all looks like they're very broad, right? But those broad agendas basically are created when the whole entire system itself comes under pressure, and you don't want somebody else to actually figure out what's going on. Because when you have broad things, it's like finding a needle in the haystack. So you create a haystack and hide the needle in there. Now go find it, right? It's like that. But now let's look at the pattern, that how BRICS is negotiating. What's going on? Right? First of all, let me actually share my slide with you real quick, okay? So now let's look at this. President Trump, he meets Xi Jinping. Okay, he's visiting China. He's visiting China. Along with him is going who? Delegation is basically Elon Musk, Jensen Huang of Nvidia, then Tim Cook of Apple, Boeing, MasterCard executive. They all are going over there. Okay, then trade wise, if you look into, then you find the US China tariff is holding. Then actually, let me put my slide back again. Okay. Then 50% of China's crude comes from the Middle East. That's going on. US needs Beijing leverage to reopen Hormuz and all that. All that is going on. Okay. So then at the same time, Prime Minister Modi, he begins his major diplomatic tour through UAE and Europe. Then Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov arrives in New Delhi. Then Iranian Foreign Minister Arachi is actually in New Delhi too. Then UAE's foreign ministry is in New Delhi too. So there's a whole bunch of things are there. Okay. Now, if you look into who is going with President Trump, that is very important. Who is visiting? Jensen Huang, then Elon Musk. Elon Musk is going over there for electric vehicle negotiations, because lots and lots of Tesla components and rare earths are needed, and they come from China. You have to understand that game here, okay? Then Jensen Huang from Nvidia, same thing for him. So, and then Tim Cook, Apple, because Tim Cook may be actually trying to, he may be discussing something like, okay, we will start some of the manufacturing here too, and in return you open your market for us and this and that, and let's discuss the semiconductor rare earth options and all that too. So lots of these things are going on. Okay. Then at the same time, Prime Minister Modi is visiting to all these 5 countries, European countries and all that. Okay. So what's interesting is this. If you look into Prime Minister Modi's visit, okay, so now let me actually share my slide again. This is going to get interesting, so stay with me, okay? Now, 5-nation tour: UAE, Netherlands, Sweden, Norway, Italy, okay? So UAE, energy security; Netherlands, ASML, EUV lithography; India EU free trade agreement has happened already. So ASML comes from there. Philips is the main thing, right? These are the main companies in Netherlands, right? Then you have Sweden. We don't worry about Sweden as much. Norway, Arctic route, right? Italy, IMEC plus defense, right? So all these things are there. So do you really believe that this is a coincidence here, right? Do you think that this is a coincidence here? See, when Prime Minister Modi is visiting UAE, and UAE has already left OPEC. What do you think UAE is going to do? UAE already left OPEC because UAE wanted to increase its production from 3 million barrels per day to 5 million barrels per day. Now, India's total daily demand is 5.5 million barrels per day. That is India's total demand. So if India actually simply goes to UAE and buys the entire 5 million barrels from UAE, and that too in national currencies at a cheaper rate, then India has two places. Right now, India is actually getting almost 30% to 40% of its demand met by Russia alone. That is, like, India is importing 2 million to 3 million barrels per day. So that means that India will be importing total of 7 to 8 million barrels. India may increase it few more million barrels to make it like 10 million barrels total. So India is getting a cheaper import from them, Russia and UAE. And if that happens, then India gets the cheaper crude. Basically, simple mathematics: buy low, refine it, and export a higher value petroleum product into the international market. A higher value petroleum product that is close to or below the crude price, which is pretty much the case. If you sell the crude refined crude product, then it probably comes down to the standard crude oil pricing. But India is already getting the cheaper crude, so there is the margin, right? So, and that's one aspect of it. Then if you look into it, then you have semiconductors. Prime Minister Modi is visiting Netherlands with ASML. What does that tell you? ASML right now, overall, ASML has been providing the fabrication and lithographic equipments and all that to Korea and TSMC in Taiwan. Now, President Trump is going to China along with his semiconductor team. So it's not a coincidence that Prime Minister Modi is in Netherlands to discuss all these things. Now you have to understand the connection here. Connection is that India and US both are part of the semiconductor grouping called Pak Silica. Now, when President Trump reaches China, then my only guess is that the discussion will be around Taiwan. First of all, US has created a blockade in Iran, so Iran cannot provide oil to China. Now here's the mechanics that is coming out. Okay, so stay with me. Okay, this is the interesting part, that block the Iran. China is already out of Venezuela and all that. US is securing the Western hemisphere completely, meaning that Latin America and all that. So China is not going to get any energy from any of these countries unless they want a war. Okay. Now, what US probably is going to negotiate is that, hey, how about we negotiate the rare earths for the energy? That yes, you go take the energy from our Western hemisphere and all that, and if Iran, so be it, that's fine. But you make sure that our rare earth supply is there until we are not saying that you keep doing it forever if you don't want to, until our backup system that we are working on, our supply chain and all, is ready. Okay, so rare earth supply, if you look into it, who is working on it? UAE is working on the rare earth supply. India is working on the rare earth supply. Then Brazil is also working on it, and then there are a few other countries that are working on it, basically. Okay, so and then semiconductors, the same thing as well. That India and Korea are working on it, on the semiconductors, chip manufacturing, and all that. So this is the deal. What US is discussing, and because Pete Hegseth went over there too. So if it is just president's visit, what Pete Hegseth is doing over there? See, thing is that they are discussing Taiwan as well. So what Taiwan discussion will be that, hey, okay, you keep Taiwan, we don't have problem with it, but you will do all that when we have a backup supply chain ready for our semiconductors and all that. Once that is ready, you keep Taiwan, we don't care about it. So the way I'm seeing it is that this is the negotiation is that if you will block us from accessing Taiwan or anything else, then what we are going to do is that we are going to block you from accessing any of the energy or any other material. That's what basically US is saying at this point. Okay, this is why Monroe Doctrine has been applied over there in the Latin American region to completely stop the oil supply and all that, and from Iran as well, because see, Russians cannot provide full supply to China. Okay, they cannot do that. And with this BRICS meeting and all that, Russians are also saying that, hey, we need somehow this Ukraine war to end. So what probably the way I'm seeing it is that the Russians are also supporting United States behind the scenes in this whole thing, so that Ukraine war can end as well. So with all this architecture that's going on, this is the whole entire negotiation that is going on. Okay, with the war, what all the countries have done is that they have created situation to as a bargaining chip. Right now, normally the outcome of the war is used as a bargaining chip. The winner actually keeps things, territories and all that, and then they use that as a bargaining chip. But here, war itself is being used as a bargaining chip. US problem is that US is there in Iran, they're blocking it, and they're using that bargaining chip in return for rare earth supply and semiconductors and all that. Same for Taiwan situation. Then Russians are saying that, okay, we will work together, we can figure something out, let's end the Ukraine war. So US is saying that, okay, we are not going to supply any help to Ukraine, you do go whatever you want to do. Okay, so, and in the meantime, what India is doing is, India is saying that, hey, you guys fight, we are going to go secure the supply chain and all that, so that we can cook the food so that you idiots can eat it. That's the whole scenario here. Okay, so all these meetings and all that you're seeing, that's the outcome of it. Okay, that's why I said that BRICS is negotiating. So West and BRICS are negotiating right now this whole entire thing. Okay, and that's how the architecture is going to work out, at least as long as President Trump is in power. Okay, that's number one reason. Okay, and also if you look into it, that I just wanted to add this thing about the Norway Arctic visit. So if you look into it, then Norway is also part of the Arctic Council, right? So is there a plan to revive the Arctic cooperation? Because it is possible that that our Arctic, right, the future Arctic routes, energy, critical minerals, and all that. So when you revive the Arctic Council, and Norway has Arctic regions, Norway is an Arctic country. So there may be some deal where India can use Norway, Canada, all these countries, they can work together, come up with some sort of negotiation that, hey, you give us these things, and what we will do is that under our FTA and all that, we can use that and then take it through the Russia corridor, that Vladivostok Chennai corridor, or INSTC that connects all the way to St. Petersburg and all that, and Moscow and all that. So they may actually come to Venezuela, and then not Venezuela, but Vladivostok, and then from Vladivostok to Chennai, like that. So there could be this possibility as well, right? So So the question is that will India connect Arctic opportunities back through broader Russia partnership, right? All this only time will tell, right? But only one thing that increasingly stands out is that wars are simply not military events. Like I said, they are becoming what? They are becoming bargaining chips inside much larger geopolitical negotiations, right? That the war is happening. All right, okay, we are going to support the other country. We are going to continue to support other country until you listen to us. If you want to end the war, then you got to listen to us or do these things, and we will end the war. Okay, negotiations. The second thing that's happening, or the second major theme emerging from BRICS is security. BRICS has every now and then talked about introducing the security framework within the BRICS, as in security framework for conflict resolution. And I think that this could be this cannot, I mean, there can't be any better time than this. Okay. But there are things but this is where things get very complicated too, right? Because for years, if you look into it, then BRICS mostly focused on what? Trade, development, finance, multipolarity, multilateralism, and all that thing, reforms, right? But after the expansion, things have changed. The equation has changed. Now, Russia itself emphasized on consolidating BRICS after expansion, right? That is one of the main objectives, and one of the major objective is when BRICS says consolidation, then this is what BRICS is saying, that hey, we need to come up with frameworks, trade framework, we need to come up with security framework, BRICS needs to come up with finance framework, all that, everything and anything that will replace the old multilateral institutions. Okay, which means that this is going to change the fundamental architecture of the so-called unwritten rule-based international order. And once that happens, then lots of things are going to change. Now, if you look inside the BRICS itself, you find that actually, let me share my screen real quick, okay? That you find that there is Iran is inside BRICS, UAE is inside the BRICS, Russia is inside we know all these, China is inside, India is inside the BRICS, right? Now, here's the thing, that Prime Minister Modi's first stop in UAE, what is, I mean, don't you think that there is a possibility that Prime Minister Modi probably is hinting that, hey, why don't you tell your guy to pipe down a little bit? And Arachi is there, and we can discuss this thing at least so that Iran does not attack you. And we will come up with some sort of arrangement to calm Iran down. And once Iran doesn't attack you, then it becomes the problem of US and Iran between them. Let them sort it out, whatever way they prefer to sort it out. So that could be the possibility too, that this kind of arrangement is being made, because Iran has shown willingness that hey, if India gets involved, then yeah, that's very good. And if India doesn't get it, I mean, if India gets involved, that's very good, because Iran doesn't trust Pakistan anyway, and US doesn't trust Pakistan either. They have just made this announcement just recently that Pakistanis were actually safeguarding Iranian planes, not one, not two, the whole entire fleet of it. they painted Iranian planes looking like Pakistani planes, and they were hiding them in their hangars. So what does this mean? It means that BRICS is no longer discussing security in theory, right? And these geopolitical tensions are actually entering the discussion, the room. So when you expand, contradiction also expands along with it. So the question really is that can BRICS, especially India, can India actually play the mediator with its special leverage that it has, or let's say special privilege that it has with other countries, that it can talk to everyone and find a diplomatic solution to the problems with everyone. So let's see if India can do that. But I believe that what you see right now is the first step. Now, another hint I will tell you this. So if you look into it, then who is visiting? UAE foreign minister, Iranian foreign minister, Russian foreign minister. Who is missing? Can you guess? Chinese foreign minister Wang Yi is not visiting New Delhi for the BRICS foreign minister meet. Even though China, for Wang Yi said that he is busy because President Trump is visiting over there. Okay? Because President Trump is visiting over there, so Wang Yi basically said that he cannot visit because of that. But China said that we fully support BRICS, we fully support India's chairmanship and this and that. They said all those things. But I think that Wang Yi gave the reason that Trump is visiting, so there is a scheduling conflict. But I think it's not the scheduling conflict. It is more of a not wanting to sabotage the negotiation situation here. Meaning that if Wang Yi, let's say, visits India, then of course, reporters, press, media, they all will ask this question about President Trump's visit. Hey, what is going on? This, that, all that. Right? They will ask all these questions, and there will be lots of more things that will be pried out of this whole thing. And the fear is that he may probably spill the beans as to what's going on. Now, in every negotiation, whatever happens, negotiations, mainly their best weapon is that you have to protect the negotiation. It has to be as secretive as possible. Okay, so I believe that that's why Wang Yi simply didn't come. He sent the ambassador. In fact, nobody from China actually came here. Nobody from China went to India. I'm saying came to India. I'm not even in India. So, yeah, nobody is visiting India from China. It's just the Chinese ambassador to India is visiting that. Right? What else it could be? So, which means that what I was saying earlier about the negotiations. So, this is what is going on. That Taiwan negotiation, semiconductor and rare earth supply negotiation in return for what? Energy supply chains and all that. And because see, if US can get down to business, okay, US can get down to business. There will be other supply chains that US can disrupt for China, because China's business to Latin America is almost $800 billion. Okay, it's not very small business. $800 billion. Now, if US starts to hit those cargo ships for whatever reasons, then what do you think is going to happen? What Chinese would get involved into World War III or something? Maybe, who knows? But would they? Right? And any negotiations that happen, let's say Chinese don't agree. But no, we don't want them. Okay, sure. You're not gonna get the energy. That's number one thing. You're not gonna get the energy. That's number one thing. Number two thing you're not gonna get is that you won't be able to export your items to Latin America either. Why? US doesn't have to apply the sanctions on China. US doesn't have to apply the sanctions on China. US just have to bomb the crap out of all these cargo ships that are going to Latin America. Simple. Or disrupt their supply chain. What's going to happen? Insurance risk is going to go up. Those products that China makes, cheap products, just one or two cargo ships, and after that, look out. Those products, the prices will go up. And when prices will go up, then of course the exports will have a serious impact on the exports. So would China want that is the question. Okay. So this is the perfect weaponization of the supply chain at this point. Okay, yes, it may look like on paper that China has the advantage and all that, but looking at China's trade and everything else, does China have the advantage? Unless so, Latin American countries they start to open their mouth, oh, please don't interrupt this. But what are they going to do? Is the question. Hmm? Are you going to fight the bully who is way bigger than you? No. If your bully is bigger than you, all you do is, hey man, we just talking, and you just back off and you leave. That's what you do, right? So coming back to our this discussion, so that's what BRICS is doing now. The BRICS is right now discussing this whole security dialogue internally. That hey, let's sort these things out. And if Chinese agree, then well and good. If not, then how are we going to tackle the rest of it? Right? Because if Chinese ships are getting hit and other cargo ships are starting to get hit and all that, then world will have even bigger problem, right? Because we have a bully who just wants World War III, who's not gonna stop without getting nuked. So we will see. So that's why I'm saying that there is a crisis looming, and uh, every country is trying to figure out how to sort this out. Okay, so BRICS is no exception to this thing. Now, next topic, let's talk about the another one. Okay. Now, third and most important thing that BRICS is doing is that energy security. Okay, energy security is becoming national security at this point. For those who don't understand, look at the Iran war. Energy security, right? Energy security. Countries want to control Iran's oil for negotiation. That, as I explained earlier, right? Then the same energy security is creating problem for UAE and Saudi Arabia too, right? All that good stuff is going on, right? So if you look into it, then India's BRICS agenda specifically it highlights the strengthening dialogue on energy security, consequences of energy transition, and BRICS energy research cooperation and food security. Has been a food crisis or food problem, food supply problem after the Russia-Ukraine war started, right? So underneath, I mean, all these are official words, but underneath what's happening is that there is a deeper shift. If you look into the Ukraine war, what's happening? It has reshaped what? Energy flow. It has reshaped your food supply. It has reshaped the fertilizer supply, that is agriculture and all that. It has reshaped the goods supply chain that comes from China to Europe and all that. All that has been shifted, okay? And then Hormuz, Strait of Hormuz risk is there. So all these risks are there. What happened with the oil supply chain here? If you look into energy supply chain, that is. With the energy supply chain, the Lloyd of London, all they increased their insurance premiums and all that. Now, when they're increasing the premiums, because of that, most of the oil prices are going up. So, what BRICS or let's say what India is doing, India has launched its Bharat Maritime Insurance. They launched it not to counter Lloyd insurance and this and that, but actually to control their own energy prices, because they may not control the oil that comes from the Strait of Hormuz, but they can definitely control the pricing from the insurance point of view. So premium is not going to go up. So why? Because premium, if you can control the premium, then you can control the energy prices for the most part, right? And countries are actually starting to realize this uncomfortable truth, right? That energy systems themselves are becoming vulnerable. So this is where the preparation actually begins, right? We know that thing, how Western insurance system has taken over PNI, there will Lloyd of London and all that, right? And I talked about this whole BMI, the India's BMI maritime insurance framework long time ago. No, I mean in one of the videos. So this actually what it is doing is that it's creating this optionality, and that okay, if premium is going to go up, then we have our own, so we can at least control the prices. Now India is already getting the cheap crude from Russia and all, which that price is already under control, okay? So what you have to understand this, that when I say price, that price is already under control, then what do I mean by that? Because lots of you may say that how India can control the price. No, India is not controlling the price. Russia is controlling the price. Russia does not follow any kind of international standard to sell the oil. Same for the same reason, UAE left OPEC, because UAE wants to have its own pricing model rather than relying on OPEC cartel model and lose all the money instead of gaining anything. So now what UAE is going to do is that UAE is going to sell its own oil at its own price. And just like Russia is doing. Russia already violated OPEC. Russia is part of OPEC Plus and all that, but Russia doesn't follow OPEC's rules. So that's why the pricing is that way. Now, only thing that see when crude oil, then you take the crude oil, you put the crude oil into the shipping containers, and then that shipping container basically takes the route and maritime route and then goes to the destination. And as soon as oil gets inside the shipping container and then it goes to the maritime route, this whole entire time, any risk that is there, it is covered by the insurance. Okay, so and there is one part of it is called war risk insurance. Now, if Indian ships are just directly coming from Russia or coming from the UAE from the alternate route, then where is the war risk here? US is not going to attack Indian cargo ships. Why would they do that? So, and even coming from Russia too, they're not going to do that. So for India realized that if they stayed with Lloyd of London, then prices are going to go up continuously. Okay, so they launched this thing. Now they have added Russian companies into it as well. You have to understand that. Let me actually share my slides here. So now you notice this thing. India has actually ended the 7-year freeze, and India is going to import Iranian oil too. And India has been sourcing oil from 40 plus countries. And India UAE trade has reached $100 billion. So now they're going to take it further to $200 billion. Just with what? Just with the oil trade. Now look at the maritime insurance. They're launching their own BMI framework. Okay. So that's how this whole thing is working out. Okay. So that's how India and BRICS is securing the security. And chances are that, and this is $1.5 billion policies, chances are that India may actually add countries like Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and few other, Thailand, all these countries in that whole vicinity. India may add all those countries into it so that they're all covered with the insurance, they all can get the cheaper oil supply. And that's the whole point of it. Okay, so all these things have been strategically planned. And another thing that India is doing is that India is building 100 cargo ships, and those orders are being passed to different countries. I think that's another reason that Prime Minister Modi is visiting the European countries, because lots of European countries can build those ships too. So we will see lots of things happening like that. Okay, and this is how India and BRICS are securing their energy supply chains. Okay, now let's move to another. So this is I think that this is one of the most important things that BRICS is doing to counter or prepare for the global crisis. And that is, BRICS is negotiating the rules of next financial system. So for those who follow my videos, then actually you notice that I made a video sometime in January or February, I think, where we talked about how BRICS is planning to link its CBDC payment systems. So all the BRICS countries will basically link the CBDC payment system. India and UAE have already linked their digital payment systems already. It has already being done. Now India and Russia are going to do that too. Basically, all the BRICS countries are going to do this thing. So why this becomes a very important thing? Why? Because this is the final area of preparation. Because lots of times that power is not dependent on military. You can coerce certain things, but ultimate outcome of it could be a major problem. Power is the infrastructure. Basically, infrastructure like who controls the payment system, who controls settlement networks, who controls financial rails, who controls institutional architecture. If you look at the rule based international order that was created by the United States and the cumulative West, was not because of US military and all that. Russia could counter US military easy peasy. That's not a problem, okay? But the problem was, or China can do the same thing. Just because China is sitting quietly does not mean that Chinese cannot. Okay, yes, even though lots of people may argue with me that oh, India bombed Pakistan, Chinese equipments failed in Pakistan, Chinese equipments failed in Iran. What happened over there, we don't know. Okay, lots and lots of analysis is done based on what CNN or some other news agency has to say. So let's not go there. Okay. Now, coming back to the point that so the power relies on what? The entire rule based infrastructure or architecture was built on what? Infrastructure of what? Shipping lanes, infrastructure of what? Insurance, infrastructure of what? Financial institution, trade institution, all that, right? So you have to, if not a lot, you have to at least come up with the infrastructure, that is financial infrastructure, where you can make a smooth payment, you can make a smooth settlement, you can add those layers, right? So if you look into India's broader BRICS agenda, this also includes reforming what? United Nations structures, international monetary funds. Then it also includes World Bank structure reform and all that, right? Why is that? Because these systems are not designed to help the global south. And that's why coming up with your own financial infrastructure is very, very important. And the start of that is, that has to be how? That has to be done through central bank digital currency interoperability. This is not a BRICS BRICS currency. This is not going to replace any national currency and all that. This is simply connecting systems underneath the trade itself. Meaning that CBDC will be what? CBD e-rupee. E-rupee will be India's national currency, digital currency, national digital currency. Meaning that they are going to sunset the hard currency slowly and slowly over the period of time. So this is the whole idea, and the whole financial plumbing will be done here, and all the BRICS countries will work together into this new financial architecture. And another thing is this, one thing I actually forgot to mention, that India and Russia actually signed the defense pact, right, where 3,000 soldiers and all some warships and all can be there. This is all part of the security architecture. Okay, all that is part of the security architecture. Prime Minister Modi is visiting UAE. They have to take care of the energy needs. When they take care of the energy needs, so India can provide that energy to all the BRICS countries. Because with all this nonsense, what's happening? Whatever is happening in the state of harm, mostly Asian countries and the South Asian countries are impacted by it, right? And if you look into it, then you find that lots of South Asian countries are part of the BRICS as a full member or as a partner country. Thailand, whether it is Thailand, whether it is Indonesia, whether India, China, Russia, you name it, just like that. So all that has to be handled properly. So this is why, because the countries are believing that there is some serious instability coming, and that may actually create more and more problems, right? So So yeah, so I mean, if you look into all these things, so all the geopolitical transitions, this is how they start. They start very quietly through meetings, system being redesigned. Then you will see rules will change, right? And then tensions will slowly and slowly start to stabilize. Nothing dramatic will happen, and then all of a sudden, boom! Like, oh, what happened here? But why? Because major powers see these things. So I mean, always major negotiations are done between the major powers. Somehow the scrambling happens. You start to see this leader visiting that country, then that leader visiting this country, that country. All that starts to happen, and none of that makes any sense. It all looks like isolated event, but no, right? So no, the question is that yes, they all know the major powers know what's coming. But the real question is that who is prepared early enough, right? And that's what the preparedness is right now. Okay. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please do like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thank you.